Your Excellencies, distinguished public, good morning from Brussels. It is an honor to address the EurAfrican Forum today to share with you the perspective of NATO on our most pressing global security challenges. First, I would like to commend Portugal for organizing this conference. Since the founding of NATO, Portugal has been a steadfast and a valued member. And Portugal plays an important role building security in Europe and beyond. This forum is very timely. It shows the importance of partnerships, the importance of joining forces, of working together to respond to the new geopolitical and geostrategic security landscape. NATO is a regional organization, but with a global outlook. We focus on the security and stability of the transatlantic area. And we have partners from all over the world. These include other regional organizations, such as the European Union and the African Union, and many countries from Asia Pacific, Latin America, or from Africa, with whom we work closely together. Developing partnerships, or collective security, as we call it, is one of our core tasks. And some of our partners joined NATO in the summit that took place last month in Madrid. It was a strong display of international unity in response to the new security situation. The NATO Madrid summit was a truly transformative and historic event for many reasons, but not least because of the far-reaching consequences that the invasion by Russia of Ukraine is having in Europe, in the transatlantic region, and also in the whole world. This brutal and unprovoked aggression has dealt a severe blow to the rules-based international order, and the overall security environment has become more dangerous and more unpredictable. It is creating global instability and a serious energy and food crisis. And despite what Russia is saying, and I want to stress this, the food crisis is not a consequence of international sanctions. It is Russia who is creating this crisis by attacking Ukraine, destroying key infrastructure and blockading its ports. And we have seen it very clearly last weekend when Russia attacked the Ukrainian port of Odessa. So what has been NATO's response to the crisis created by Moscow? I can tell you that NATO allies have responded with speed and unity to do three things. First, to protect all member states and to avoid an escalation of the conflict in Ukraine to NATO's territory. Second, to support Ukraine uphold its right to self-defense, a right which is enshrined in the United Nations Charter. And third, to galvanize the international community to show solidarity with Ukraine and also to condemn Russia's aggression. Our relation with Moscow has also changed substantially. Russia has become the most significant and direct threat to our security and to peace in the Euro-Atlantic area. The alliance remains willing to keep open channels of communication with Moscow because we need to manage and mitigate risks. We need to prevent escalation and we need to increase transparency. But any change in our relationship will depend on the Russian Federation putting an end to its aggressive actions and to fully complying with international law. And here I want to make something very clear. NATO has always sought to have good relations with Russia. We do not seek confrontation and we do not pose a threat to Russia. But because of its own actions in Ukraine and elsewhere, the Russian Federation can no longer be considered a partner. As a response to the aggression against Ukraine, NATO allies deployed fast additional forces to the east of the alliance. The objective of this reinforced deterrence, of this reinforced military presence, is to preserve peace and to prevent conflict. This is the key objective of our deterrence, to avoid a conflict and to maintain peace for the 1 billion citizens living in NATO countries. Everything this alliance is doing is defensive, because NATO is a defensive political military organization. But Russia is not the only threat we face. there are many other security challenges. One of the strengths of NATO is its capacity to adapt to the evolving security space. Every time the world has changed, NATO has changed. And today, we face a radically changed security environment. Strategic competition is rising. The balance of power is shifting. Democracy and freedom are under heavy pressure. Terrorism and nuclear proliferation persist. And cyber attacks and climate disruptions are also on the rise. All of this affects our security. This is why, at the Madrid summit in June, NATO leaders adopted what we call a new strategic concept, a blueprint for the alliance in a more competitive world, to respond to the new geostrategic and geopolitical realities. The new strategic concept is significantly different in scope and tone compared to the 2010 concept approved, by the way, in Lisbon. Why? Because Europe is not at peace anymore, and we face the most serious security situation in the Euro-Atlantic area in a decade. The Madrid strategic concept focuses on the future of NATO-Russia relations, the strengthening of our collective deterrence and defense, and the framing of our interface with China, which was not even mentioned in 2010. This new political strategy also has a pronounced reference to space, to resilience, and to cyber as integral elements of our collective deterrence and defense posture. And it covers our evolving approach to a number of other threats and challenges, including terrorism and hybrid. And even if the new strategy puts a stronger emphasis on collective defense, it maintains the two other core tasks for NATO: crisis management and cooperative security. And this is for two reasons. First, because NATO remains the only international organization that can mount and sustain complex multinational operations. And second, because working with partners remains key for us, including through efforts to help enhance their resilience. Let me give you a bit more detail on four important political priorities for our alliance: China, climate change, resilience, and of course, partnerships. First, China. NATO looks at the challenges that the rise of China poses to our security, to our interests, and also to our values. We see that China's power projection has consequences for the security of allies and also our partners. China is substantially building up its military forces, including nuclear weapons. It is also investing heavily in critical infrastructure, including in allied countries. In the context of China and global challenges, NATO will continue to stand with its partners to preserve the rules-based international order, a global system based on norms and values instead of force. But China is not our adversary. We will continue to look at the challenges and also the opportunities that China brings. And it's important to have a dialogue with China to discuss very important issues, such as arms control and also climate change. So this takes me to climate change, because it is a defining challenge for our time. And NATO is committed to playing our part in mitigating the impact of climate change on our security. So here in NATO, we are working to incorporate the security impact of climate change into everything we do, from defense planning to capability development and exercises. Our aim is to cut NATO emissions by at least 45% by 2030 and to move towards net zero by 2050. I can tell you that this is an important step for our alliance. Now, resilience. Resilience has become a top priority for NATO. Strengthening civilian resilience is key for our security. Our member states are determined to increase their national and our collective resilience, including on energy security. To make our societies stronger, our people and our institutions must be able to better resist and bounce back from attacks. Allies are working to make our infrastructure more resilient and our supply chains more diverse and more secure. Civilian resilience is our first line of defense, as our Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says. Now, I would like to make a few more points on the relevance of our partnerships. It is clear that in an era of strategic competition, we want to work even more closely with like-minded nations and organizations. Our partnership with the European Union has reached unprecedented levels. And here I would like to give you an example of the importance of the partnership between NATO and the EU. Right now, we share 21 members. As you know, as a consequence of the new security reality created by Russia, 2 EU members, Finland and Sweden, have applied for NATO membership. When Finland and Sweden join the alliance in the coming months, NATO and the EU will have 23 members in common, and around 93% of the citizens of the European Union will live in a NATO country. Therefore, our relationship is more important than ever, and we will continue to deepen our cooperation. But we will also do more with our partners in the south. Jordan and Mauritania, for example, participated in the Madrid summit, showing our determination to continue to respond to challenges from the south, including the Sahel and also North Africa. We will support Mauritania in the area of special operations, maritime security, and intelligence. And we will help Mauritania deal with security concerns such as border security, irregular migration, terrorism. This is just an example. But NATO leaders also agreed in the June summit in Madrid to additional capacity building support for Tunisia and to continue to stand by Jordan. We will increase our efforts to anticipate and prevent crises and conflicts, supporting our partners, including with capacity building to help counter terrorism and malign interference. In this regard, protection of civilians is very important, is really central to our approach to crisis prevention and management. This is why we will continue to work with other international actors, including the European Union, the United Nations, the African Union, to address the broader conditions leading to crisis and to pervasive instability, and also to contribute to stabilization and reconstruction. We are really convinced that the challenges of today are too big for any nation or organization to face alone, because the threats we face are global and they are also interconnected. This is why, by standing together with our partners, we are stronger and we are safer, and we can better protect our people, our values, and our way of life. So to conclude, I just want to stress that the new strategic concept of NATO, the new political strategy of NATO, makes very clear that our values define who we are. They must continue to guide us in a more complex world, where these values are clearly under severe pressure. And NATO will continue to work to preserve peace, to prevent conflict, and to protect our people. We are committed to upholding the rules-based international order, and for that, we need the support from all our partners. Thank you.